Hey guys, it's Ian Benjamin, Digital Hub. How are we all doing? Today, I'm totally blessed in the company of Andrew Lewis. For you guys that don't know who Andrew Lewis is a massive advocate of social justice. He's based over here in the UK. And however, he is the global head of digital operations for Cisco. And he's also the founder of Inner City Truth, which is about social justice, and he has created that and putting programs and other sort of projects in place to support that. And we'll kind of get into that with the podcast as we kind of go through this. So again, yeah, Andy, how are you? How you doing?
Hi, Ian, and hello to all of your podcast listeners. It's great to be here. I'm good. I'm really, really well. Looking forward to spending some time talking with you.
Super duper, fantastic. So in typical Digital Hub fashion, what I'd like to do is kind of to give the listeners and viewers an idea of who you are. I've got a testimonial here from Tom Charteris. Tom Charteris, he worked with you, I believe, and a few years ago when you were working on the NHS project. And he says, Andrew was instrumental in helping my team to launch a public alpha, a new digital platform designed to enable the NHS hospitals in England to access and share learning and improvement ideas. Deadlines and budgets were exceptionally tight, but Andrew was able to juggle agile product management, work with content teams and UX and UI team specialists to deliver the projects. He's meticulous, communication professional, and is full of positivity and ideas. So bam, that's a pretty good start, right? You know? So
yeah.
No, so was that a good project that you worked on back in the day? Was that a good one?
Yeah, it feels like so long ago, and you know how apt it is that you would use Tom's words as part of this podcast. The fact that the NHS now are so key to everybody's lives as it happens, and you know, playing my little part in helping them in their day-to-day by helping them build a website that allowed them to find information and use that information to help with their treatments was certainly a project that, you know, I cherish, and I'm really pleased that, you know, Tom said those words.
Yeah,
it's
a
great project.
Really good. Now, honestly, NHS, I mean, everyone's kind of like they've gone up a notch or two in everyone's estimation. I mean, they're part of my podcast branding, and for many reasons, obviously, in this crazy period of our lives that we're living right now, you know. So
right,
I couldn't agree with you more. But superb. No, it's great to have you here. Really good to have you here. So you reside in London, working for Cisco currently over here, and so you recently kind of secured this new role. And so tell us a bit about from a social justice perspective, how that all started as well, before we kind of get into the Cisco piece.
Sure. So my last role was working for a huge corporate organization at the post office, and as part of my role there, I was the BAME network chair for about 18 months. And as part of that work that I was doing at the post office in that role was to start looking at kind of like, you know, diversity and inclusion, you know, racial equality, and all of those different types of elements that affect particularly the BAME workforce.
Cool.
So
was that your idea? So did you kind of implement that? Because you obviously took that and sponsored that sort of project. Were you selected to do it, or did you kind of stick your hand up to do it? Or?
So yeah, no, it was exactly that. So the actual network itself was there before I was at post office, so it was always active. But the last chair of the network decided to leave the post office. Right. I then went into the seat after doing a presentation to the committee, the network committee, and they then decided that I was the right person for the chairmanship to take them and move them forward. So from my perspective, it was an absolute honour working with the committee and working with that team to help champion, you know, that element of diversity and inclusion, making sure that BAME are represented, and also the other added element of the killing of George Floyd that happened early last year, that just inflated the amount of work that we needed to do around this subject.
Right. So did you start that position as chair prior to George Floyd or during that situation, or?
That's correct. So I was already in the position when that happened.
Then he just massively accelerated the whole sort of focus on it.
That's correct. Like most companies, I think a lot of them paid a lot of lip service to it. They came out, they made statements. They're still not moving the dial enough. And funny enough, on my LinkedIn profile, I have talked about my frustration around a lot of companies still not doing enough in this space. So as part of me moving to Cisco, I wanted to keep the type of work that I was doing as a BAME network chair, and keep that work doing. So that's why I decided to find something in what I'm calling Inner City Truth, which is essentially a collection of platforms that I'm using to amplify and talk about the likes of diversity and inclusion, race equality, homelessness, well-being, mental health, all of these things that need that extra kick in order to try and get them and raise the profile of some of these really important issues and concerns.
Definitely. And isn't it funny that, through COVID, that all these things have now come to light and have been fine-tuned and all of it have been made more aware of all these different segments of everyday life that's kind of pulling people down, not just from an equality perspective, but obviously you mentioned well-being and mental health. And it's so true. It's really, really affecting all of us, which is great. So that's really, really good work. So people can kind of get hold of you and learn about what you're doing through Inner City Truths. Is that through Instagram, and what other sort of platforms are you using for that?
Yeah. So predominantly my key channels, my key digital channels that I use are Instagram, and I can be found at Inner City Truth, and on Twitter, which I can be found at Inner City Truth 1. Both of those different channels I use specifically, as I said, to amplify a lot of the concerns and issues and problems that we see in society. And a lot of those things stem from injustices that are happening in society, like the fact that we've got too many people living on the streets, to the fact that we know that there's a problem and an issue with systemic racism and institutionalized 100%. Racism within our organizations in the UK.
Definitely, yeah. So when you got that role with the working and selected yourself to work in that capacity with the post office, when you started looking at the data in terms of their black representation at senior management and C-level, was there a huge disparity there? Because obviously the post office is very multicultural, where you have blacks and Asians in significant numbers working on the ground as postmen and postwomen, also in the shops and so forth. But I suppose from a corporate level, was it like, oh my gosh, the disparity is like minimal, as it were?
So obviously I can't go into too much of the details around kind of like some of the data and the information.
Yeah, sure.
But what I can say is that the majority of organizations today are in a similar position where they're not matching the current percentage of BAME UK population figures to what is then mirrored within their organizations. So we know that based on the last census, and there's one coming up actually this year in 2021, but based on census data from 2011, we know that 14% of the UK was made up of BAME people. So from that perspective, what you want to see is an indirect reflection of that 14% within an organization, within all of the different grades and levels that you have in an organization. So if you have 15 people on your board, then you'd expect to at least see 2 people coming from a BAME background, for example.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, exactly. Absolutely right. And clearly that isn't the case. But a quick question for you as well, because obviously working at the level you're at now as well, how do you think companies can start conversations with their C-level, like with the boards? I mean, about it. What do you think is an easy way to do it? I mean, because even if, okay, let's take it back a notch. Even if a company hasn't got a board, they're like an SME and they've got, directors, etc. But there may be a small percentage of people of color working in those senior management positions or at director level. How would you, just as just off the cuff, just chucking it out there to see off the top of your head, how you think it would be an easy way for the people to start having those uncomfortable conversations with their directors? Would you say?
Well, if a board has a conscience, then what they need to be doing is listening to their network and listening to their people. There should be more done around kind of like the survey elements of their staff and really checking in with people to see what are the underlying and foundational elements that's making potentially people unhappy, or where they're seeing where there's unfairness. So a continual check on your staff members from different, obviously they're going to be from all different backgrounds, and starting to use your data to enhance and to help you make decisions based on what the society is telling you, and whether or not you feel as a senior leader that it's going to be right. And I think that's one of the key things. The second key thing I think here would be education, 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 the 3 E's. They're all the same, but there's 3 E's here. And I've said it 3 times specifically because leaders and experienced leaders at that, they still need to educate themselves on what it means to have complete transparency in making sure that people of color from the BAME background do have the same opportunities as our white counterparts.
100%. I mean, as a recruitment guy, I've been in recruitment for too long, and so I speak to candidates of all backgrounds, and it's prevalent with the Black and Asian community, especially that at the senior management level, they're individuals that I've spoken to, and I try to headhunt out of a position for a role that I'm working on, and when I approach them, they just want to go for it. So it sounds nice, it sounds really interesting. Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that, but based on my previous experiences, I never get those positions. And they also feel as though they also see individuals within their current position being promoted, individuals that are white that are being promoted, and they're not. So they are, a lot of them, I'd say 50-50, or maybe even the majority, felt, look, do you know what? I've been told by my mum and dad when I was growing up to stay in my lane, don't rock the boat. And, and I'm like, no, you've got to go for this. And so what I think is critical, what I think is important, is getting the messaging right. If the companies really, really authentically want to try and make a change and change those numbers, improve those numbers, is to get the messaging right and to build that trust with the candidates of colour that they would like to give an opportunity to get into the interview process. But because a lot of individuals that I felt didn't feel as though it was genuine, that they're going to go through all the rigmarole, all the nerves that were associated with going for a new job, etc., and risk going to a company that they didn't feel was going to support them. So they just kind of stay there, which is awful. I mean, I've got a 17-year-old lad I've spoken to you about before, and I don't want him growing up in that sort of environment. Do you know what I mean? So it's it's shocking to think that's out there, and it could limit what he could achieve. So being part of that process, this journey is significant. But that hasn't held you back. I mean, goodness sake, man, let me give you the congratulations. I mean, so in the last 6 months, Andy, man, honestly, wow, you have landed a massive, massive gig. So let me just kind of repeat your job title again. I want to get this wrong. So you are now Cisco's global head of digital operations. Global head. That is just boom. What does that look like for you? What does that mean?
Well, what does it mean? So my background obviously stems within digital, and with different disciplines within digital, from content management, content strategy, to digital operations, web operations, managing kind of scrum teams to deliver
so
work.
Much.
So it does stem and go across quite a few disciplines within things that touch the digital estate and delivery. So moving from my previous role, which was UK based, one website, to a global business like Cisco, where now I'm working on a huge transformation project on their web estate at the moment, which is actually round about kind of 60 or so different websites. It's a huge challenge, and really getting stuck in right now and starting to form, how I'm going to deliver against this program of work that I've been given to manage.
Wow, amazing. So like 60 websites, they're all going to be having a revamp or having new
refresh features. A rejig.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. So I mean, if you've got where are the majority of the developers based? Are they just globally scattered around?
So the way that we're going to kind of manage the project from a back end perspective, we're going to be using, of course, a lot of internal resources from Cisco. Being a technology company would probably be the wrong thing to do to outsource too much.
Yeah. Well, that's what I meant.
Yes, we certainly will be using Cisco excellence in that area. Plus, we work with a number of different agencies to help aid the delivery of this project as well.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I didn't know whether there was like one location of Cisco, like for example, in San Francisco, or maybe in another country that has a larger pool of developers than in another country. But I mean, that's incredible, fantastic, really good.
Yeah.
So was it a long process in getting that position with them, the interview process? Or?
It was very in depth. Yes, very in depth. I was initially contacted. We had some discussions around kind of like the bigger picture, shall we say. I presented to them my vision.
Did you get headhunted? Did you get headhunted for it? Did you get someone reach out to you and say, "Hi, would you be interested in this?"
I had a tip off, shall we say, so I presented to them, kind of like what I think my vision would be in the context of the problem that they put to me, and as part of that presentation, I was then put through to a number of different conversations with the VPs of the communications, the global communications business within Cisco.
Nice.
After about 5 or 6 different presentations and meetings with the VPs within communications, obviously then we started to formalize how things might start to look for me.
And that's all done on Zoom.
And then I started in January.
Right. So all this communication has all been done through COVID pretty much on the Zoom and MS Teams and whatever it was like that. Wow.
All of it.
Amazing, man. Fantastic. Honestly, mate, that's amazing. Really good. Well done. Congratulations.
Yeah.
That's a significant opportunity to land without a shadow of a doubt. Really good. Okay, cool. So in terms of, let's kind of an idea or kind of see where you are. I mean, they're based over here, over there, you're based over here. So have you got an interest in kind of relocating to the US perhaps, or?
Well, it being a global role, essentially, a lot of my key stakeholders are on the west coast of the US, but my manager actually is on the east coast of the US in Boston, and then I have. Obviously, there's me that's based in the UK, but essentially the role itself is a global role reporting into that global business in the US. So, I think there is going to be an option at some point to potentially, relocate to the US with this role. Of course, as it happens right now, we are deep in lockdown and COVID restrictions. So 100%. How quickly that happens, not only from a movement perspective from the UK, but also we've got to look at the movement and how that's going to work for the US. I think we're probably a year away from a proper conversation about the potential of moving.
Right, gotcha. I mean, do you think Cisco's outlook has changed in terms of how the rest of the staff are going to work going forward in terms of working from home? Or do you think it'll be back to business as usual from a working in the office environment? Or would they be more open to?
I think Cisco, like most digital businesses, I think the digital businesses that I've been kind of following and trying to kind of like glean more information about what they're going to be doing long term with staff and whether or not they want people to be coming into the office. I think Cisco are no different in giving the options to their staff. There's always going to be an office. I would have thought for most businesses, but at the same time, in saying that, I think now, because people have been working from home for so long, I've actually really enjoyed it. I used to be a 9 to 5, commuter on the train every single day into Moorgate. And I've actually, really embraced the home working ethic. And I actually do like it. So if I didn't need to go back into an office 5 days a week, I certainly wouldn't.
No, that's right. Yeah, I think it's a mixed bag. I think you're absolutely right. Everyone's got different reasons or different situations, traveling. Some people live outside London, might work in London, so they're taking 3 hours off of their day, which is unbelievable, and saving them a fortune as well. Company cars, costs on that, the office space. So it's a really, really mixed bag. Really, really interesting to kind of see how things pan out in 2-3 years from now.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. So for all the young individuals that we reach and we can share this video with, I think really interesting. What was it that kind of got you interested in digital? Where did it start from? What was the kind of like that bug in digital? Where did that come from within you?
Oh God, do you know what? I think there was no real particular thing that kind of like came out. I think I could start to see that there was a slow shift in the job market, where there were more types of jobs that were becoming more digitally minded in the way that they were coming out.
Visually digital, visually or
in the context of there were just more digital jobs. So I was back in the day at the start of my career, I was more kind of like in project management, program management type roles, and so on. But then there was this kind of like digital manager roles and all of these different types of roles that were very much more in the digital space. And I think it was from then on in that I thought, well, let's try and get a role working within that space. And it was in actually the first kind of real role of digital significance for me is when I went and worked agency side for a huge global agency called Hogarth Worldwide.
Gotcha. The technical director.
Yes, that's right. And delivering kind of like some of their systems and so on while working there. That was when I really started to get into working within the digital realm, as it were.
Right. Okay. Fine. So they're a massive agency. They're huge. So what were you looking at? Websites, apps, and that type of scenario? Then was it kind of?
It was delivering what we call production workflows through a couple of systems. One was called Zonza, and the other one was called Fido, if I remember rightly, back in the day. And those systems obviously is to help the production of a media asset, so a video or a press release or imagery that needs to be for an advert, for example. So it's the workflow that needs to go through in order to get the final cut done. So it's software that would manage that process. Yeah.
Gotcha. Fantastic. So from Hogarth, working there, you're there for a couple of years, and then you kind of went on to, I can't remember where you were after that now. Can you remember where you were after Hogarth, what you did? Was it
Hogarth? Quite quickly, I went to Tesco's.
Oh, did you? Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I went to Tesco as head of media operations at Tesco. Tesco actually headhunted me for that role back in the day, because we went and pitched the system that I was actually delivering to Tesco's. Hogarth didn't actually win the work, but Tesco's actually liked my part of the pitch when it came to how we would go about delivering the system. So a couple of weeks after we'd done the actual pitch at Tesco, I got a call from someone in HR at Tesco saying, one of the directors was very impressed with your work. They would like to interview you if you're interested in a role that they've got coming up. Would you be interested in talking about it? And I was, yeah.
Okay.
This is like going, I always use football analogies in this type of situation. This is kind of, and no disrespect if there are any fans of this club, this is like going from Millwall to Tottenham Hotspurs, for example. It's like, from the Championship to the Premier League when it comes to kind of like, that company status, Tesco's a huge company.
Yeah.
So not to take on a challenge like that. And then when they offered me, it was, not only a great opportunity, yes, the package was amazingly better than what I was on. So there was lots of benefits to taking this job. And that's what's actually propelled me from there.
Right, superb, fantastic. So you're there for like, what, a year or so? Then from there you went to Dubai, is that right?
That's right, yeah. So unfortunately, I got made redundant from Tesco.
Oh, really?
Yeah, got made redundant from Tesco's.
Typical.
And then had the opportunity to go and work in Dubai on a contract.
Right.
So spent a year out there working for a huge company called Alpha Tame.
Yeah, they're massive. I know the name. I think is that name associated with the prince or the king or something. That surname.
I know that they're one of the founding families of Dubai. Whether or not it's that close, but they're certainly very well known. The owners of the Alpha Tame businesses.
Yeah. How do you like it over there? Proper hot all the time, isn't it? I mean, I've been there once.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say to any young person that's out there that wants to experience a different culture, a different way of living, and day to day, wall to wall sun, then certainly while you're young, I would definitely recommend going out to Dubai and spending some time out there. It was a really, really good fun.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I've done 6 weeks out there. It was amazing time. I don't know if I could do it, now, or I could have sustained it. But yeah, amazing, just unbelievable culture. You're absolutely right. It was really, really good, superb.
Yeah.
So brilliant. So, what would you think was like the defining moment in your career to kind of like that kind of shaped you? I mean, was it like you mentioned the role with Tesco? Was that the kind of the defining moment, or was it the Hogarth kind of getting into that digital thing?
Do you know what? I don't want to put it down to any one thing. I think that the way that I would like to define my career is in the way of always being in front of the game, always trying to think about what is going to be the next big thing, essentially. Where can the current role that you're in, where can it take you next? If you've got a given job title of X, Y, Z, does that translate itself into the next role that you want to go into or not? If not, do you need to start thinking about what you need to be job title wise and doing wise in order to get to your next level? So always, I would suggest that you always try and think about, this role is only for now. What is it that I want next?
Right, yeah, 100%.
And work towards that. Even build your objectives towards that. Make sure, manage your manager. Make sure that you get that opportunity to really try and shape and mold the role that you've got into the next role that you want to do.
Right, superb, fantastic. That's really good bit of advice there. Really good bit of advice and kind of insight into your vision. What was the most challenging role, would you say? Because obviously, don't forget, whilst this was going on over the last 15, 20 years, technology is just moving at a rapid pace, right?
Yes.
So you've got to kind of keep around the ball, thinking, well, wow, that's.
I think to answer your question, I'd probably go back to my last role. And the only reason why I would say that is because post office is half government owned and half a commercial business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So when it comes to open-ended budgets and free spending for all, that's never there. I mean, absolutely, management of budgets and so on are in any business are key foundational elements. but you are much more limited in what you could do or what you can do when it's a government department, as it were, to a degree. So I think from that perspective, that probably was the most challenging, because I'm sure there was a lot of things I probably would have liked to have done.
For the budget restraints,
more,
you couldn't do it.
But obviously, due to restraints, it would have been difficult.
Right, okay, fine. So that's kind of like challenging, because you like pulling your hair out thinking, well, they want X, but I can't do that. Do you know what I mean? Because we haven't got, so trying to figure out ways to do it. Similar to what Tim in your testimonial alluded to. We were able to. Tom, exactly. Fantastic. Best bit of advice you've been given, would you say?
Wow. I always like to think about things that that my parents have kind of like, told me. And the one that I think comes to mind more than anything is always be twice as good as your white counterpart.
Yeah, I hear you.
Especially because, of some of the things that we've already spoken about earlier in this interview. Because it is hard for, young Black people to really prove themselves in organizations. And there's always been this bullish kind of mentality that I think that my parents have instilled into me is never ever to give up, never ever say you can't, and always follow your dreams, but you will probably have to be twice as good
100%
as your white counterpart.
Yeah, I've got told that as well.
Unfortunately, that is the way that it is for the majority of people from specifically from a BAME background. That the chances that we have in order to fulfill our own destinies are more limited due to the inequalities that we have within.
Definitely, because we kind of grew up thinking that so that's how we're conditioned. And I think a lot of white individuals, privileged, they haven't had to grow up with that stigma. They don't have to carry that around with them all the time. Do you know what I mean? Right. Am I going to be accepted? Am I going to get a fair crack of the whip? So to not have that, it must be amazing. Do you know what I mean? And people say, well, look, we'll go back to live in the Caribbean, whatever, where you haven't got that prejudice. But why should I? Why should I? When I was born here, and when you were born here as well, and we've got opportunity. Why should those opportunities not be taken? Should be taken away from me? So no, exactly. So obviously, I'm a digital recruiter. I headhunt individuals in the digital sector. I love what I do. I love the digital space. It's moving at a rapid pace, etc. And it's becoming more and more easier for individuals to kind of, there's more opportunities of new different technologies and platforms popping up all over the place. I mean, the latest one is Clubhouse. Over the last few weeks or few months, a platform has popped up out of nowhere, and I think it's valued at over $1 billion or 10 billion or something recently. Crazy. So the technology from a communication perspective, which I like, is really, really evolving. And but I mean, have you ever had the interest to kind of like to set up your own agency, to kind of like from a communications point of view, or has that been something that's been of interest to you?
To be honest, I think the world is your oyster, right? So as I've gone through my career, I've made changes and fundamental kind of like segues into different areas, because at that point in time in my career and in my life, that's where I wanted to be. So I would never rule out the opportunity to divest and diversify into something that would be slightly more challenging for me. This is your bread and butter. You know exactly how to operate in these circles and so on. But it's something that if I was passionate about in a given point in time moving forward, that I thought that I could offer something back as part of the great work that you're doing in the digital hub work that you're doing as well, then it certainly is something that I would contemplate.
Okay, cool. Because obviously some people think, well, no, I want to have my own agency, I want to have my own agent, I want to run my own business. Some people have got that all the time, have that for like 15, 20, 25 years. Some people own that team, but that's not something that you use like a dying passion for you at the moment, as it were. You wouldn't say
certainly isn't, but it's certainly not something I've ruled out, because it's not something I've there's too many things that I need to really focus on right now. With, as I said, over the last kind of like year or so, with the social injustice elements and work that I think that I still got a lot to give with Inner City Truth, and the work that I'm doing with that. You know, I want to build an Inner City Truth website, for example, where I'm housing a lot of the information and getting people to come and contribute on that platform as well. So that will be kind of like 6 months to a year's time, you know, probably away in delivering that. And also, you know, that Cisco, my new role at Cisco, you know, opens up other opportunities as well within that organization.
It must do, yeah.
I just got to make sure I keep my finger on the pulse, do what my mind tells me at the given time for what's going to make me feel good about me, and whether or not it's going to be something that's going to ultimately develop me as a person.
Yeah, I know you're going to smash it. I mean, what you've done so far, looking at the CV, looking at your LinkedIn, talking to you as well, it's been amazing. Absolutely fantastic career to date. Fantastic. No, honestly, it's really, really good. Well, as you know, I think you spoke to my daughter earlier.
Yes.
And so, you know, she's one of your fans. Oh my God, she's working in San Francisco and London. So she just loves that. So it's really, really good. I think it's really inspirational for young people, show them what they can achieve. So it's amazing. But let's get to understanding you. Let's lift the bonnet up, which I do on these podcasts. So tell me some things. So what's in your what's your iTunes? What you got on there right now?
Oh my gosh. As you can probably see, I'm a huge music fan. You know, loads of vinyl there, man. Yeah, behind me. I've just literally downloaded Busta Rhymes' last album, and I'm hooked on a track at the moment called Czar, which is what I would call one of those kind of like real head nodders from back in the day.
Really? You know, how do you spell it? Z-H-A. How do you spell the
C-Z-A-R? It's called Czar.
I'm gonna find it.
And I've just fallen in love with that track right now. But anything around kind of like old school hip hop, R&B, you know, funk, acid jazz, of those types of genres I'm in.
Superb. So how often do you actually get to spend on the decks? I mean, do you actually play them regularly, or when was the last time? Every
weekend, because we've been on lockdown, right?
Yeah, of course.
So it was in lockdown that I bought the second deck, because I thought, you know what, you know, being on lockdown, you know, I spend, well, obviously at this point in time, all of my time at home pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's just a really good kind of like, you know, nostalgic throwback for me for when I was a lot younger. And I used to DJ out in some of the bars, and I even done a couple of clubs in London back in the day.
Yeah. Cool,
it's just been great fun, just spinning the records again.
Brilliant, fantastic. So do you like going out, like live music as well, like concerts and that type of thing as well?
When we could, absolutely.
Obviously when we could, definitely. It's going to come back, man. 2021. I don't think, you know, we're now at the beginning of March, right? I think, you know, May, June time, if there are things popping up already that are going to happen. So definitely.
Let's hope so.
Okay, good. Wonderful. So how about sports? I mean, were you into sports at all or anything like that? Any other hobbies?
Yes, I'm a big football fan. Used to play a lot as well. You know, never got to the dizzying heights of the Premier League, but you know, played at a half decent level. You know, I always thought I was a bit better than what I was, to be fair. But I'm a big Tottenham fan. That's why I use Spurs as my analogy.
I was going to say, yeah, definitely. You know what I mean? Yeah. I thought that's why.
Big Spurs fan, and you know, if football's on the TV or sports generally, I do like to keep my eye in, as it were.
Superb. So have you been to the new stadium? I'm sure you have, though, right?
Of course, yes.
Yeah. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It's insane. It's brilliant. It's an amazing place.
Fantastic. And so what's your favourite tipple? Do you kind of have a drink and stuff like that, like a gin or?
Well, if I have a tipple, I'm West Indian at heart. Both of my parents are from Barbados. So it's certainly Mount Gay rum is my go-to kind of like drink.
Definitely.
So yeah, having one or two of those, you know, when it's right, then yeah, it's a lovely drink.
100%. I've got some in the cupboard right now. I mean, definitely. I love my rum, love my beers, and like my rum kind of side by side. Something that I've done for years. And again, West Indian upbringing.
Yeah.
And you just kind of fall into the rum scenario. Why not?
That's it.
Lovely.
That's it.
Lovely. Super, fantastic. Well, listen, man. So we've got a platform here. It's not a big platform. We're growing daily, growing weekly with Digital Hub. Obviously, my background is recruitment through digital hires and digital recruitment. But Digital Hub is something that we started during lockdown as a way to kind of get awareness and to kind of give people something back for digital influencers like yourself to kind of inspire and bring awareness to the digital community. And so with this platform that we've got, is there anything that you want to kind of say or to say to kind of to inspire, to influence the individuals or to kind of promote what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I've certainly mentioned on a couple of occasions in this interview that I'm heavily involved in social justice work, and I want to elevate, my platforms on Twitter and on Instagram to get people involved and to follow some of the conversations that I'm amplifying that people need to make sure that they're starting to take heed of. So, as I said before, Twitter, the handle is @InnerCityTruth1, and for Instagram, the handle is @InnerCityTruth. As I alluded to a couple of minutes ago as well, I will be looking to build a website as well. I've got the domains purchased. I've got the .co.uk, I've got the .com, I've got everything there. It's all ready to rock and roll. I just will need to be. I just need to find the time. Obviously, just started a brand new job.
Yeah, brand new job. Yeah, mate, you've got loads going on.
Yeah, and I just need to make sure that I land that properly, and then once I've got some breathing space, really start to develop out this whole, inner city truth idea. And I'm sure it's going to branch into other things.
Yeah, definitely.
That's going to as we move forward.
Be good to kind of see how that kind of pans out without doubt. Fantastic. Well, listen, man, we have to wrap it up. Time's flown. It's like, we're gone past 12 o'clock. I want to say a big thank you. You've been a great guest. Been an inspiration to me and my family in terms of what you've achieved. Love it. And so thank you so much for being a guest on Digital Hub, and hopefully we can kind of get you back probably around towards the end of the year, hopefully get you back on for part 2. That's all right,
Well, it's been wonderful being here, Ian, and thank you so much for spending this time with me. I will just leave you with one last thing as part of the Inner City Truth narrative. You might see that I'm wearing a badge here. This is a badge that represents prostate cancer and the work that lots of individuals are doing in and around prostate cancer. Prostate cancer affects 1 in 8 men. So if you're over 40, go and get what's called a PSA check and make sure that you're fine, because it is something that goes undetected. And specifically within Black men, 1 in 4 Black men are affected by prostate cancer. So again, these are things that I amplify on my platform and want to make sure that people are very much aware of. It's the #1 or fast becoming the #1 killing cancer of men in this country.
Yeah.
So please do go and get checked. Thanks 100%. So much.
No, thanks a lot. You're absolutely right. Because I normally go once a year. I didn't go last year because of COVID, so I need to go this year. And my dad told me the same thing. Because my dad's been through it, not at a high level. But no, honestly, once again, thanks a lot, Andy. I really, really appreciate it. It's been great having you on there. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.